The welfare queen thinks she is somebody important. Officer Terrence Miller points directly at Doctor Elena Brooks as she walks through the Birmingham County Courthouse doors, his finger jabbing the air like he is marking target practice. Officer Calvin Reed throws his head back, mouth wide open in exaggerated laughter, then makes a mock curtsy toward her. Miller cups his hands around his mouth. "Your Majesty need help finding the food stamp office." Both officers slap their knees doubled over in performance. Level mockery. Reed wipes fake tears from his eyes and pretends to bow. Dr. Brooks stops. Every muscle in her body could snap these men in half, but instead she simply adjusts her government-issued briefcase. The same hands that have briefed 4 presidents now smooth down her blazer. Her eyes scan their faces with the cold precision of someone who has spent 22 years cataloging threats to national security. She says nothing. Not yet. Have you ever watched someone dig their own grave with their mouth? Inside the courtroom, Officer Miller straightens his uniform and walks to the witness stand like he owns the place. His chest puffs out, his shoulders roll back, and that same smirk from the hallway now spreads across his face as he places his hand on the Bible. This is his territory, his version of the truth. "State your name for the record," the prosecutor says, adjusting his expensive tie. "Officer Terrence Miller, badge number 294. 18 years of dedicated service to this community." Miller makes sure to emphasize dedicated service while looking directly at Dr. Brooks. 18 years of dealing with people who think the rules do not apply to them. The prosecutor nods approvingly. "Officer Miller, please tell the court what happened on the evening of March 15th. Miller leans into the microphone, his voice carrying the authority of someone who has told this story 100 times before. "My partner, Officer Calvin Reed, and I were conducting routine patrol duties when we observed a vehicle traveling 15 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. Standard traffic violation, nothing unusual about it." He pauses, letting his eyes sweep across the mostly white courtroom gallery. Several jurors nod along. This is familiar territory for them, too. So we initiated a traffic stop standard procedure. The driver pulled over immediately, which was cooperative, I will give her that. But the moment I approached the vehicle, her whole attitude changed. Miller shakes his head with practiced disappointment. Suddenly she is arguing, raising her voice, making accusations. What kind of accusations? Officer Terrence Miller says the usual stuff we hear every day, racial profiling, harassment. She kept saying we had no right to stop her, that we were targeting her because of her race classic deflection tactics. Miller glances at the jury box. "Look, I have been doing this job for 18 years. I have seen every excuse in the book, but this lady, she takes it to a whole new level." Officer Calvin Reed sits in the gallery, nodding supportively at every word. His presence serves as silent backup to Miller's testimony. 2 uniforms against 1 woman. "How so?" the defense attorney prompts. Miller actually chuckles. She starts pulling out all these official-looking documents, claims she is some kind of federal agent, says she works for Homeland Security. He makes air quotes with his fingers. "Now I have seen fake identifications before, but this was elaborate, professional-looking. Someone put real effort into making these forgeries look authentic." The courtroom murmurs appreciatively. Even Judge Leonard Hayes raises an eyebrow, as if impressed by the length some people will go to avoid a simple traffic ticket. She is waving these papers around, demanding to speak to my supervisor, saying she outranks me. Meanwhile, she is getting more and more agitated. At one point, she actually stepped out of her vehicle in what I perceived as an aggressive manner. "You felt threatened?" "Absolutely. When someone claims to have federal authority and starts acting erratically, that is a red flag for officer safety. We are trained to de-escalate, but we are also trained to protect ourselves and the public." Miller shifts in his chair, playing the part of a professional under pressure. "Look, I do not care what color someone is. I do not care if they are rich or poor. The law is the law, and when someone resists a lawful order, when they become combative and start making threats about their supposed connections, well, that is when things escalate. The defense attorney walks closer to the jury. Officer Miller, in your professional opinion, what was the defendant trying to accomplish with these claims of federal employment? Intimidation, pure and simple. She thought if she could convince us she was someone important, we would back down, let her go without consequence. It is a common tactic among people who think they are above the law. Miller looks directly at Dr. Elena Brooks again, his stare cold and dismissive. Some people think if they dress nice, talk fancy, and wave around impressive-looking paperwork, they can manipulate law enforcement, but badges do not lie, training does not lie, and 18 years of experience does not lie. The prosecutor objects half-heartedly to the editorial commentary, but the damage is done. Miller has painted Dr. Brooks as a manipulative liar who fabricated federal credentials to escape consequences for her actions. Officer Miller, the defense attorney, continues. During this interaction, did the defendant make any statements that seemed rehearsed or calculated? Oh, absolutely. She had answers for everything. Too many answers, if you know what I mean. Like she had practiced this routine before. She mentioned specific protocols, used law enforcement terminology, even referenced federal oversight procedures. But here is the thing. Anyone can search that information online nowadays. Anyone can study up and try to sound official. Miller leans forward conspiratorially. In my experience, real federal agents do not need to announce themselves with a stack of papers and a bunch of threats. They show their credentials quietly, professionally. They do not create a scene in the middle of a traffic stop. And what happened when you asked to verify her identity through official channels? She became evasive, started talking about classified clearances and need-to-know basis red flags everywhere. When someone will not let you verify their claims through proper channels that tells you everything you need to know. The defense attorney nods gravely. Officer Miller, based on your 18 years of experience, your extensive training, and your observations that evening, what is your professional assessment of the defendant's behavior? Miller straightens up, putting on his most official voice. In my professional opinion, Dr. Elena Brooks engaged in impersonation of a federal officer, obstruction of justice, and resisting lawful arrest. She attempted to use fraudulent documents and false claims of authority to intimidate law enforcement officers in the performance of their duties. He pauses for effect, making sure every word sinks in. This was not someone confused or scared. This was someone who thought she could talk her way out of consequences by pretending to be something she is not. And when that did not work, she became combative. That is when officer safety protocols kicked in, and we had no choice but to place her under arrest. The courtroom falls silent. Miller has delivered his testimony with the confidence of someone who has never been successfully challenged. His version of events paints Dr. Brooks as a sophisticated con artist who nearly fooled two experienced officers. As he steps down from the witness stand, Miller straightens his uniform one more time and gives Dr. Brooks a look that says, "Try to get out of this one." But Dr. Brooks just sits there, calm as still water, making notes in a leather portfolio. She has not said a word during the entire testimony. She has not objected or reacted or shown any sign of the agitation Miller described. She just writes and waits. Doctor Amara Elena Brooks rises from her seat with the fluid precision of someone who has commanded rooms far more powerful than this one. No theatrics, no dramatic gestures. She simply stands, smooths her blazer once, and walks to the witness stand like she has done this 1,000 times before. The bailiff holds out the Bible. Dr. Elena Brooks places her right hand on it without hesitation, her left hand raised. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, I do?" Her voice carries across the courtroom with quiet authority, not loud, not aggressive, just absolutely certain. "Please state your name for the record." "Dr. Amara Elena Brooks." The courtroom murmurs. Until this moment, everyone, including the officers, knew her only by the name on the arrest record, Doctor Elena Brooks. They have no idea that Elena was the alias she used during federal travel, and Amara Elena Brooks is her true official identity. She pauses just long enough for the title to register with the jury. Doctorate in International Security Studies from Howard University, Masters in Criminal Justice from Morgan State University. The defense attorney's eyebrows raise slightly. This was not in Miller's version of events. Dr. Brooks' attorney, a sharp black woman named Angela Price, approaches the witness stand. Dr. Brooks, please tell the court what happened on the evening of March 15th. I was returning from the Atlanta Federal District after completing a classified briefing at federal headquarters. The meeting concluded at approximately 6:30 post-meridium, and I was driving home via Interstate 85 when I observed flashing lights in my rearview mirror. At exactly 7:47 post-meridium. The precision catches everyone's attention, not around 8 o'clock or sometime in the evening. Exactly 7:47 post-meridium. I immediately activated my hazard lights and pulled into the designated emergency stopping area, coming to a complete stop within 43 seconds of the initial signal standard protocol for any traffic encounter. Angela Price nods. What happened next? Officer Miller approached my vehicle with his hand positioned on his service weapon, which is unusual but not unprecedented for evening stops. I lowered my window completely and placed both hands visibly on the steering wheel, as outlined in de-escalation procedures I have studied extensively. Dr. Brooks' testimony flows like a detailed report, each fact presented with clinical precision. No emotion, no accusations, just methodical documentation of events. Officer Miller asked for license and registration. I informed him that I would be retrieving documents from my briefcase, and I moved slowly to avoid any misinterpretation of my action. As I reached for my identification, I also retrieved my federal credentials as required by protocol when federal personnel are detained during official travel. What was Officer Miller's reaction to your credentials? He examined them for approximately 15 seconds, then handed them back and stated these: "Look real fancy, but anybody can buy fake badges online these days." He then instructed me to step out of the vehicle. The courtroom murmurs. This detail was not in Miller's testimony. Did you comply with his instruction? Yes. I exited the vehicle with my hands visible and stated clearly, "Officer, I am a federal employee returning from official business. These credentials can be verified through the Department of Homeland Security duty officer, available 24 hours. I provided the direct verification number." Dr. Elena Brooks reaches into her blazer and pulls out a small official-looking card. This is the Federal Employee Contact Protocol card issued to all personnel for exactly these situations. She holds it up briefly, then returns it to her pocket. The movement smooth and practiced like she has done it countless times in far more serious circumstances. What was Officer Miller's response to your offer of verification? He stated, and I quote, "I do not have time for your games, lady. Save the act for someone who is impressed." He then instructed his partner, Officer Calvin Reed, to call for backup because, quote, "We have got a live one here who thinks she is Federal Bureau of Investigation or something." Angela Price walks closer to the jury. Dr. Brooks, you mentioned protocols and procedures several times. Where does your knowledge of law enforcement protocols come from? I have spent the past 22 years developing, implementing, and overseeing federal law enforcement training protocols across multiple agencies. My work involves extensive collaboration with local, state, and federal law enforcement to ensure consistent application of constitutional standards during civilian encounters. She says this matter of factly like mentioning she spent 22 years teaching elementary school. No pride, no boasting, just professional background. In your professional experience, did Officers Miller and Reed follow standard protocol during your detention? Multiple violations occurred within the first 5 minutes of contact. Failure to verify federal credentials when offered. Failure to utilize available communication channels for identity confirmation. Escalation of force posture without documented cause for officer safety concerns. Dr. Brooks pulls a manila folder from her briefcase and sets it on the witness stand ledge. She does not open it, just places it there like a chess piece being positioned. Dr. Brooks, you mentioned you were returning from a classified briefing. Can you tell us the general nature of that briefing? I am not at liberty to discuss specific details due to national security classifications. However, I can state that the briefing concerned emerging patterns in law enforcement accountability and constitutional compliance across federal jurisdiction areas. The irony hangs in the air like smoke. She was literally coming from a meeting about police accountability when this happened. During your interaction with Officers Miller and Reed, did you at any point become combative or aggressive? I maintained professional demeanor throughout the encounter, even when Officer Miller began making statements about my appearance and making assumptions about my background based on my race. What kind of statements? Dr. Elena Brooks looks directly at Officer Terrence Miller for the first time. Her gaze is steady, almost clinical. Officer Miller stated, quote, "Another one of these people trying to pull rank with fake papers. When I attempted to provide additional verification, he said, 'Save it for the judge.' Sweetheart, maybe she will be impressed by your little costume. The defense attorney objects to hearsay, but the damage is done. The jury has heard Miller's dismissive tone described in Dr. Brooks' measured professional voice. Dr. Brooks, how long have you held federal security clearance? 20 years of continuous top-secret clearance with periodic Special Access Program authorization for counter-terrorism operations." She reaches into her briefcase again and pulls out what appears to be an official government badge, though she does not display it openly, just holds it in her hand like a reminder. In your professional opinion, could this encounter have been resolved differently? Yes. Standard verification procedures exist specifically to prevent these misunderstandings. A single phone call to the federal duty officer would have confirmed my identity and credentials within 3 minutes. Instead, Officers Miller and Officer Calvin Reed chose to escalate the situation based on personal assumptions rather than professional protocol. Dr. Brooks closes her briefcase with a soft click. The protocols I have spent 2 decades developing exist to protect both law enforcement and citizens from exactly this type of encounter. When those protocols are ignored, everyone suffers. As she prepares to step down, she glances once more at that manila folder on the witness stand ledge. Something about the way she looks at it suggests there is much more inside than anyone realizes. Thank you, Dr. Brooks. No further questions at this time. But as Dr. Brooks returns to her seat, Angela Price adds quietly, "Your Honor, we reserve the right to recall Dr. Brooks for additional testimony once we present our evidence." The way she says evidence makes everyone in the courtroom suddenly very interested in what is coming next. The courtroom adjourns for the day, and Doctor Amara Elena Brooks drives home through the same streets where she was humiliated just weeks ago. But these streets tell a different story than the one Officer Miller painted in court. Her house sits in a quiet neighborhood where American flags flutter from several porches, not the kind of place Miller would expect a welfare queen to live. The 2-story colonial is modest but well-maintained, with a small garden where she grows vegetables and a driveway where her government-issued sedan sits next to a practical blue sedan. Inside the walls tell the real story of Doctor Amara Brooks. Framed photographs line the hallway leading to her home office. There she is shaking hands with the last 4 presidents. Another photo shows her receiving a commendation from the Director of Homeland Security. A third captures her briefing a room full of serious-looking officials around a mahogany conference table. But the most telling photo sits on her desk. Dr. Amara Elena Brooks in tactical gear, standing with a team of federal agents outside a building with Southeast Urban Security Task Force visible on a sign behind them. She is not posing for the camera. She is pointing at something off-frame, clearly in command. Her phone buzzes. "Mom, how did it go today?" The voice belongs to her daughter, Nia Brooks, a third-year law student at Southern Crest University. About as expected, Dr. Brooks says, settling into her office chair. Miller performed exactly as I predicted he would. Performed, honey, when you have spent 22 years studying human behavior under pressure, you learn to anticipate reactions. Miller is a textbook authoritarian personality, needs to maintain dominance, cannot admit error because it threatens his entire identity structure. Nia's voice tightens with worry. But, Mom, what if the jury believes him? What if they think exactly what Miller wants them to think? For now. Dr. Brooks opens her laptop, and the Department of Homeland Security seal appears on the screen. But tomorrow, we present evidence. She pulls that manila folder from her briefcase and spreads its contents across her desk. Dashboard camera footage files, radio transcripts, global positioning system, tracking data, personnel records, and something else. Something that will change everything. Nia, let me ask you something. In your constitutional law class, what did Professor Langston Pierce teach you about the exclusionary rule evidence obtained through illegal means cannot be used in court? Why Dr. Brooks clicks through files on her secure laptop? Because sometimes the system protects people who break it, but it does not protect them from themselves. On her screen, she opens a file labeled Officer T. Miller Personnel Review. 10 complaints over 5 years, each one dismissed or buried. Each one involved citizens who looked exactly like her. Mrs. Viola Carter, age 67, pulled over for suspicious behavior that turned out to be driving while black to her grandson's graduation. Mr. Desmond Tate, age 34, detained for matching a suspect description that was mysteriously vague when investigators requested details. Miss Liana Ortiz, age 28, was arrested for disorderly conduct after asking why she was being stopped. All dismissed. All buried. All featuring the same officers. Mom, are you still there? I am here, baby, just reviewing some files. Dr. Brooks' voice carries a weight Nia has heard before, usually when her mother was working cases that kept her up all night. Nia, what would you do if you discovered a pattern of constitutional violations that had been systematically covered up? I document everything and present it to the appropriate authorities. And if you were the appropriate authority, the silence stretches between them. Nia Brooks is brilliant already interning with a federal judge, but she has never seen this side of her mother's work. Mom, what exactly do you do for Homeland Security? Doctor Amara Elena Brooks looks at the commendations on her wall. Director's Award for Excellence in Counter-Terrorism Operations, Presidential Citation for Distinguished Service. Certificate of Appreciation from the Attorney General's Office for Exceptional Contributions to Civil Rights Enforcement. I protect the Constitution, sweetheart. Sometimes from foreign threats, sometimes from domestic ones. She opens another file. This one contains dashboard camera footage from her own vehicle footage that Officer Terrence Miller does not know exists because he never bothered to look for it. Footage that captures every word, every gesture, every moment of contempt from 2 officers who thought they were dealing with someone powerless. Nia, I need to go. I have work to finish before tomorrow. Mom, be careful. These people have been getting away with this for years. They will not go down easily. Dr. Brooks smiles at a photo on her desk, her graduation from the Federal Bureau of Investigation National Academy, where she finished first in her class and won the award for excellence in crisis management. Honey, I have taken down international terrorist networks. I have dismantled organized crime syndicates. I have prevented attacks on American soil that would have made the biggest attack on United States soil look like a warm-up. She closes the laptop and looks out her window at the neighborhood where Officer Miller thinks people like her do not belong. 2 corrupt cops with badges and attitudes. That is not a threat. That is Tuesday. Tomorrow everyone will learn who they have been dealing with, and tomorrow Officer Miller will discover that some people you should not laugh at. Day 2 in the courtroom feels different. Dr. Brooks enters wearing the same composed expression, but something has shifted overnight. Officer Miller still swaggers to his seat, but Officer Calvin Reed looks like he did not sleep well. The defense attorney shuffles through papers with the nervous energy of someone who suspects the game is about to change. Angela Price, Dr. Brooks' attorney, rises with a tablet in her hand and an expression that suggests she is about to enjoy herself immensely. Your Honor, the defense would like to present video evidence from the traffic stop in question. The prosecutor bolts upright. Objection. We were not notified of any video evidence, Your Honor. Angela Price responds calmly. This evidence was obtained from the defendant's personal vehicle dashboard camera, which is perfectly legal and admissible. We are providing it now under discovery rules. Judge Leonard Hayes adjusts his glasses. Proceed, counselor. Proceed, counselor. A large screen descends from the ceiling. The courtroom falls silent as Angela Price connects her tablet. Officer Terrence Miller shifts in his seat, but maintains his confident posture. After all, what could they possibly have on video? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what you are about to see is unedited footage from Doctor Amara Elena Brooks' dashboard camera beginning at 7:45 post-meridium on March 15th. The video begins. Dr. Brooks' vehicle is traveling in the right lane, clearly obeying traffic laws. The timestamp shows 7:47 post-meridium when flashing lights appear behind her. She immediately signals, activates hazard lights, and pulls over within 43 seconds, exactly as she testified. So far, nothing controversial. Miller relaxes slightly. But then the audio begins. As the police cruiser's doors slam shut, voices carry clearly to Dr. Brooks' dashboard microphone. Officer Terrence Miller's voice cuts through the evening air. Check this out, Reed. Bet you $20 she starts crying about racial profiling before I even ask for her license. Officer Calvin Reed's voice responds, You are on, but I say she plays the important person card first. These people always think they are somebody special. The courtroom erupts in shocked murmurs. This conversation happened before either officer approached her vehicle, before they knew anything about her except what they could see through her rear window. Miller's face drains of color, but Reed looks like he might be sick. The video continues. Miller approaches Dr. Brooks's vehicle with his hand on his weapon exactly as she described. Through the audio, they hear her calm voice. Good evening, officer. I am reaching for my license and registration now. But what they also hear is Miller muttering under his breath as he walks up. Federal agent, my ass. Watch this performance. The jury is riveted. This is Officer Miller commenting on Dr. Brooks' federal credentials before she had even shown them to him. On screen, Dr. Brooks hands over her documents. Miller examines them for exactly 15 seconds as she testified. But the camera captures his facial expressions. He does not look confused or suspicious. He looks annoyed that the credentials appear genuine. These look real fancy. His voice comes through clearly, but anybody can buy fake badges online these days. But then the microphone picks up something he says to Reed when he walks back to discuss the situation. Damn it, these actually look legit. But no way this lady is federal. Look at her. Reed's voice responds. Maybe we should call it in for verification. Hell no. I am not going to be the cop who got punked by some wannabe with good fake papers. Besides, look at this neighborhood. You think Homeland Security lives around here? The video continues rolling. Every gesture Dr. Brooks described is captured in perfect detail. Her calm compliance, her professional demeanor, her clear offers to provide verification through federal channels. And the video captures something else, Officer Terrence Miller making exaggerated facial expressions too. Officer Calvin Reed rolling his eyes, making crazy person gestures behind Doctor Amara Elena Brooks' back while she is trying to explain her federal credentials. But the most damaging moment comes when Dr. Brooks, still maintaining perfect composure, says, Officer, I understand your caution, but I am offering to provide immediate verification through the Department of Homeland Security duty officer. The number is on the card I gave you. Miller's response captured in crystal-clear audio. "Lady, I do not care if you claim to work for the president himself. You are getting a ticket, and if you keep running your mouth, you are getting arrested too." Reed can be heard saying quietly, "Miller, maybe we should..." "Should what? Let her play us like idiots." "No way." The video shows Miller returning to Dr. Brooks' window, his body language aggressive. "Now step out of the vehicle, ma'am." "May I ask why, officer?" "Because I said so." "And keep your hands where I can see them." As Dr. Brooks complies, the camera captures Miller saying to Reed, "Watch this." Bet she starts with the race card now. But Dr. Brooks does not mention race. She continues trying to offer professional cooperation. "Officer, if you will allow me to contact my supervisor, this situation can be resolved quickly and professionally." Miller's response sends chills through the courtroom. "Your supervisor." "Lady, your supervisor is probably running a corner store somewhere." "Stop the act." The video continues for another 8 minutes. Every claim Miller made in his testimony is systematically contradicted by his own actions and words. The professional demeanor he described becomes clear condescension and mockery. The reasonable officer conducting a routine stop becomes an antagonist determined to humiliate someone he has decided does not deserve respect. When Dr. Brooks mentions federal protocols, Miller actually laughs. When she offers verification numbers, he waves them away dismissively. When she maintains calm professionalism throughout the encounter, he becomes increasingly aggressive, as if her composure is somehow an insult to his authority. The final moments of the video show Miller handcuffing Dr. Brooks while saying to Reed, "Another one bites the dust. These people think if they dress nice and talk smart, they can intimidate us. Not happening." Angela Price pauses the video. The courtroom sits in stunned silence. Officer Miller looks like he wants to disappear into his chair. Officer Reed is staring at his hands, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Angela Price says quietly, This was recorded by Doctor Amara Elena Brooks' personal dashboard camera. Every word you heard came from Officer Terrence Miller and Officer Calvin Reed themselves. Every action you witnessed was their own behavior." Angela Price walks closer to the jury box. Notice that Dr. Brooks never became combative, never raised her voice, never mentioned race or discrimination. She remained professional throughout an encounter where she was being mocked, dismissed, and ultimately arrested for the crime of being someone these officers decided could not possibly be who she said she was. The defense attorney objects weakly to editorial commentary, but the damage is absolute. The video has revealed not just what happened, but why it happened. Not a routine traffic stop gone wrong, but a deliberate exercise in humiliation based entirely on assumptions about who Dr. Brooks was supposed to be. Angela Price returns to her table and picks up another folder. "Your Honor, this video represents just the beginning of our evidence. We have additional materials that will demonstrate this was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern of behavior that these officers believed would never see the light of day." As the video screen retracts, every eye in the courtroom remains fixed on Officers Miller and Reed. The confident cops who entered the courtroom yesterday now look like what they really are, bullies who got caught on camera. The defense attorney stands up on shaking legs, sweat beading on his forehead. "Your Honor, we object to the authenticity of the defendant's alleged federal credentials. Anyone can create official-looking documents these days. We demand proper verification of her claimed identity before this case proceeds further. It is a desperate move, but it is all he has left." Officer Miller nods vigorously from his seat, grasping at this final straw. Maybe the credentials are fake after all. Maybe this is all an elaborate con game. Judge Leonard Hayes looks down at Angela Price. "Counselor, the defense raises a legitimate concern about verification. Can you provide independent confirmation of your client's federal employment?" Angela Price stands slowly, and for the first time since this trial began. She is smiling. Not a polite courtroom smile, but the satisfied grin of someone who has been waiting for exactly this moment. Your Honor, I would be happy to provide verification. In fact, I have a witness here today who can speak to Dr. Brooks' credentials and position within the federal government. She walks to the courtroom doors and opens them. I call Deputy Director Malcolm Tate of the Department of Homeland Security. A tall man in an impeccably tailored black suit enters the courtroom. His presence immediately commands attention, the kind of person who clearly holds serious authority. Secret Service agents take positions near the doors. The atmosphere in the room shifts instantly from small-town courthouse drama to federal investigation. Officer Terrence Miller's face goes completely white. Officer Calvin Reed looks like he might faint. Deputy Director Malcolm Tate approaches the witness stand with the bearing of someone accustomed to briefing presidents and testifying before Congress. He places his hand on the Bible with the same matter-of-fact confidence that Doctor Amara Elena Brooks displayed. Please state your name and position for the record. Deputy Director Malcolm Tate, United States Department of Homeland Security. I oversee all domestic counter-terrorism operations and federal law enforcement coordination across 34 states, including this jurisdiction. The words hit the courtroom like a physical force. This is not just federal verification. This is the federal verification. A man whose decisions affect national security policy has taken time from his schedule to appear in this small courthouse. Angela Price approaches the witness stand. Deputy Director Tate. Do you know the defendant? Dr. Amara Brooks. Yes, I do. Dr. Brooks reports directly to me as Assistant Director of Federal Law Enforcement Standards and Training. She has held this position for the past 8 years. The jury sits in stunned silence. Assistant Director. Not some mid-level federal employee, but someone who outranks police chiefs, sheriffs, departments, and most federal agents they have ever heard of. Can you describe Dr. Brooks' responsibilities in this role? Dr. Brooks oversees the development and implementation of constitutional compliance training for all federal law enforcement agencies, as well as coordination with state and local departments. She literally writes the procedures that govern how law enforcement officers are supposed to conduct interactions with citizens. Deputy Director Tate turns slightly toward the jury. To put this in perspective, Dr. Brooks' work affects the training protocols for over 900,000 law enforcement officers across the United States. When officers attend federal training seminars on constitutional policing, they are learning curricula that Dr. Brooks developed. Officer Miller slides lower in his chair. The woman he arrested for impersonating a federal officer actually outranks everyone in his entire police department. Deputy Director Tate was Dr. Brooks traveling on official business on the evening of March 15th. Yes, she was returning from a classified briefing at our Atlanta Federal District headquarters regarding emerging patterns in law enforcement accountability. Specifically, we are investigating systematic constitutional violations in certain jurisdictions. The irony is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Dr. Brooks was literally coming from a meeting about police misconduct when she was subjected to police misconduct. What is Dr. Brooks' security clearance level? Top secret / counterintelligence with special access program authorization. She has been cleared at this level for 20 consecutive years without incident. Angela Price walks toward Officer Miller. Deputy Director Tate. In your professional opinion, how should local officers respond when they encounter federal personnel during routine stops? Standard protocol requires immediate verification through federal duty officer channels. Any sworn law enforcement officer in this country has access to these verification systems 24 hours a day. There is absolutely no excuse for failing to confirm federal credentials when they are presented. He pauses, letting his words sink in. Furthermore, federal personnel are required to carry verification contact information precisely to prevent these misunderstandings. What happens when local officers fail to follow these protocols? Deputy Director Malcolm Tate's voice takes on a harder edge. When local officers detain federal personnel without cause, especially when proper verification is offered and refused, it becomes a federal matter. We do not take kindly to our people being arrested for doing their jobs. The courtroom falls silent. The power dynamic that Officer Terrence Miller thought he controlled has just been completely obliterated. Angela Price returns to her table and picks up an official document with federal seals. Your Honor, I am submitting Deputy Director Malcolm Tate's sworn affidavit confirming Doctor Amara Elena Brooks' identity position and the official nature of her travel on March 15th. She turns toward Officer Miller, whose confident smirk from yesterday has been replaced by the expression of a man who has just realized he is in more trouble than he ever imagined. Still laughing. Officer Miller. The question hangs in the air like a challenge. Yesterday, Miller was the authority figure dealing with another troublemaker. Today, he is a small-town cop who arrested someone who could end his career with a single phone call, and everyone in the courtroom knows it. Angela Price does not waste time savoring the moment. While Officer Miller is still processing the fact that he arrested a federal official who outranks his entire chain of command, she is already reaching for another file folder. This one is thicker than the others, packed with documents that spell out a much bigger problem. Your Honor, now that we have established Dr. Brooks' legitimate federal authority, I would like to present evidence that this incident was not an isolated case of poor judgment, but part of a deliberate pattern of constitutional violations. She opens the folder and pulls out a stack of official reports. I call Officer Miller back to the witness stand for cross-examination. Miller looks like he would rather be anywhere else in the world, but he has no choice. He walks to the witness stand like a man heading to his own execution. Officer Miller, how many complaints have been filed against you in the past 5 years? The defense attorney objects immediately. Relevance, Your Honor. Your Honor. This goes directly to Officer Miller's credibility and pattern of behavior when encountering citizens he perceives as difficult. Angela Price responds. I will allow it. Answer the question, Officer Miller. Miller shifts uncomfortably. I am not sure of the exact number. Angela Price holds up a thick file. According to your personnel records, which we subpoenaed yesterday, 10 formal complaints have been filed against you since 2019. 10 complaints. Officer Miller, all involving citizens of color, all dismissed by your department without investigation. She walks closer to the witness stand. Let me refresh your memory. Mrs. Viola Carter, age 67, pulled over for suspicious behavior that turned out to be driving to her grandson's graduation. You told her to stay in her lane, both literally and figuratively. Remember that Miller's jaw tightens. Every stop I make is justified. Mr. Desmond Tate, age 34, detained for matching a suspect description. When Internal Affairs asked for the description you were matching him to, you could not produce one. But you did tell him that his kind always causes trouble in this neighborhood. Officer Calvin Reed is staring at his hands, looking more uncomfortable with each revelation. Miss Liana Ortiz, age 28, was arrested for disorderly conduct after asking why she was being stopped. The charges were dropped when video evidence showed she never raised her voice or made any threatening gestures. But you did call her another entitled princess who thinks she is special. Angela Price turns to face the jury. Notice a pattern here. Citizens of color who question Officer Miller's authority. Citizens who do not immediately defer to his badge. Citizens who, in his own words, think they are someone special. She returns to Miller, who is gripping the witness stand rail so tightly his knuckles are white. Officer Miller, in your 18 years of service, how many white citizens have you arrested for disorderly conduct during traffic stops? I do not keep track of statistics like that. Well, I do. Angela Price consults her file. 0. In 18 years, you have never arrested a white citizen for disorderly conduct during a routine traffic stop. But you have arrested 13 citizens of color for the same offense. The courtroom buzzes with shocked murmurs. Even Judge Leonard Hayes raises his eyebrows at this statistic. Your Honor, I would like to call Officer Reed to the stand as well. Officer Reed looks like he wants to disappear, but he trudges to the witness stand after Miller steps down. His hands shake as he is sworn in. Officer Reed, you have been Officer Miller's partner for 3 years. During that time, have you ever witnessed him make racially disparaging comments about citizens? Reed's voice is barely audible. We sometimes, officers, get frustrated. That is not what I asked. Have you witnessed Officer Miller make racially disparaging comments? Yes or no? A long pause. Reed looks at Miller, then at the floor. Yes. Have you ever reported these comments to your supervisors? Another long pause. No. Why not? Because Miller said it was just cop talk. That everyone does it. That reporting it would make me a snitch. Angela Price nods grimly. Officer Reed, when you heard the dashboard camera audio yesterday, were you surprised by Officer Miller's comments about Doctor Amara Elena Brooks? Officer Calvin Reed's voice cracks slightly. No, that is how he talks about most of the people we stop in certain neighborhoods. The admission hangs in the air like poison gas. Officer Reed has just confirmed that the dashboard camera did not capture an aberration. It captured standard operating procedure. Officer Reed, do you understand that by remaining silent about these constitutional violations, you became complicit in them? Reed nods miserably. He knows his career is over too. Angela Price returns to her table and picks up one final document. Your Honor, I am submitting evidence that this police department has a systematic pattern of dismissing complaints against Officer Terrence Miller without investigation. 10 complaints in 5 years, all involving citizens of color, all buried without proper review. She turns to face the entire courtroom. This is not about one bad traffic stop. This is about 2 officers who believed they could humiliate arrest and intimidate citizens with impunity because the system always protected them before. Her voice rises with righteous anger. They were wrong. Today the system works. Today there are consequences. Today the pattern ends. The courtroom erupts in applause before the judge can call for order, but the applause is not what matters. What matters is the look of absolute defeat on Officer Miller's face as he realizes that 18 years of getting away with this behavior have finally caught up with him. The defense attorney rises for his closing argument with the desperate energy of a man trying to stop a freight train with his bare hands. His expensive suit cannot hide the fact that his case has been completely demolished by evidence he never saw coming. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he begins his voice lacking the confidence it carried just days ago. We must remember that police officers make split-second decisions in dangerous situations. Officer Miller could not have known, objection Angela Price interrupts. The defense is arguing facts, not in evidence. What dangerous situation Dr. Brooks was sitting in her car with her hands visible. Sustained. The defense attorney tries again. What I mean is, in today's, climate officers must be cautious sometimes, that caution can be misinterpreted as your honor. Judge Leonard Hayes says sternly, counsel will stick to the facts presented in this case. The defense attorney stumbles through 15 minutes of increasingly weak arguments. He tries to paint Miller as a dedicated public servant who made an honest mistake. He attempts to downplay the dashboard camera audio as heat-of-the-moment comments. He even suggests that Doctor Amara Elena Brooks should have been more understanding of the officer's position. But every word rings hollow in a courtroom that has heard. Officer Terrence Miller's own voice mocking a federal official has seen Officer Calvin Reed's admission of complicity and has witnessed the systematic pattern of abuse that both officers believed would never see the light of day. When the defense attorney finally sits down, he looks like a man who knows he has just delivered his own career's obituary. Angela Price stands for her closing argument, and the energy in the room shifts completely. This is no longer a desperate defense of the indefensible. This is a reckoning. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, 3 days ago, Officer Miller walked into this courtroom confident that his badge would protect him from the consequences of his actions. He believed that his word would be taken over Doctor Amara Elena Brooks simply because he wore a uniform and she was a black woman he decided did not belong in his world. She walks slowly in front of the jury box, making eye contact with each juror. But the truth has a way of surfacing, does it not? And the truth in this case is captured in Officer Miller's own words recorded by technology. He did not know existed spoken with the casual cruelty of someone who believed he would never be held accountable. Angela Price turns toward Miller, who cannot meet her gaze. Another welfare queen. These people always think they are somebody special. Your supervisor is probably running a corner store somewhere. These were not heat-of-the-moment comments. These were the practiced words of someone who has been degrading citizens for years. She returns to the jury. But here is what Officer Miller did not know. Dr. Brooks was not just somebody special. She was somebody who had dedicated her entire career to preventing exactly this kind of constitutional violation. She was returning from a meeting about police accountability when she became a victim of police misconduct. The irony would be laughable if it were not so tragic. The courtroom is dead silent. Every word carries the weight of absolute truth. The defense wants you to believe this was a misunderstanding. But misunderstandings do not involve 10 previous complaints. Misunderstandings do not include mocking federal credentials before they are even examined. Misunderstandings do not result in officers high-fiving each other after arresting someone they decided was beneath them. Angela Price's voice rises with controlled passion. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate abuse of power by officers who believed the system would protect them no matter what they did. She walks to her table and picks up Dr. Brooks' federal credentials, holding them up for the jury to see. Doctor Amara Elena Brooks has spent 22 years protecting this country from threats foreign and domestic. She has briefed 4 presidents. She has prevented terrorist attacks. She has literally written the book on constitutional policing. And on March 15th, she was arrested by officers who could not be bothered to make a single phone call to verify her identity because they had already decided she was nobody important. The jury is riveted. Several jurors are visibly angry at what they have witnessed. Ladies and gentlemen, your verdict today sends a message. If you find these officers not guilty, you are telling every Dr. Brooks in America that badges trump constitutional rights. You are saying that officers can humiliate, arrest, and abuse citizens as long as they wear a uniform. Angela Price pauses, letting the weight of responsibility settle on the jury. But if you find them guilty, you are saying that no one is above the law, not even those sworn to enforce it. You are saying that the Constitution applies to everyone, regardless of the color of their skin or the neighborhood they live in. She returns to her seat. The evidence is overwhelming. The truth is undeniable. Justice is in your hands. The jury deliberates for exactly 52 minutes. When they return, the foreman stands with the verdict form in his trembling hands. On the charge of deprivation of civil rights under color of law against Officer Terrence Miller, we find the defendant guilty. Miller's head drops into his hands. On the charge of conspiracy to violate civil rights against Officer Calvin Reed, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupts, but Judge Leonard Hayes is not finished. Officer Miller, you are hereby sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, immediate termination from law enforcement, and prohibition from ever serving in law enforcement again. You will also pay restitution to Doctor Amara Elena Brooks for damages. Miller looks up with tears in his eyes, but Judge Hayes continues. Officer Reed, for your cooperation and demonstrated remorse. You are sentenced to 18 months of community service, immediate termination, and 5 years probation. Judge Hayes turns his attention to Dr. Brooks, who has maintained her composure throughout the entire trial. Dr. Brooks, this court apologizes for the treatment you received from officers sworn to protect and serve. Your dignity throughout this ordeal reflects the highest standards of public service. As the gavel falls, Dr. Brooks finally allows herself a small smile. Justice delayed by weeks of legal proceedings has finally been served, and Officer Miller, who 3 days ago was laughing at a woman he thought was powerless, is now a convicted felon who will never wear a badge again. 6 months later, the mall security uniform does not fit Terrence Miller the way his police uniform used to. The polyester is cheap. The badge is plastic. And the respect he once commanded has evaporated completely. He walks his rounds past teenagers who ignore him and shoppers who do not even notice he exists. The man who once arrested a federal official for impersonating someone important now asks people not to loiter near the food court. Calvin Reed wears an orange vest as he picks up trash along Highway 285 community service 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. He thinks about Doctor Amara Elena Brooks every time a government car drives past. He thinks about the phone call he could have made, the verification that would have taken 3 minutes, the career he threw away because he was too afraid to stand up to his partner. But their story is just the beginning. Dr. Brooks stands at a podium in the East Capitol Federal Office Building addressing the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. The same calm voice that remained steady under Miller's mockery now carries across C-SPAN cameras to millions of Americans. Senators, the case in question represents a systematic failure of accountability that extends far beyond 2 officers in one jurisdiction. When federal personnel can be arrested for presenting legitimate credentials, when verification protocols are ignored, when complaints are buried without investigation, we have a constitutional crisis. The senators listen intently as she presents her recommendations. Body cameras for all traffic stops, mandatory verification procedures for federal credentials, independent oversight of complaint investigations, zero tolerance for officers with patterns of constitutional violations. The Brooks Protocol, as it comes to be known, is implemented in police departments across the country within 8 months. Training materials now use dash camera footage from her arrest as an example of how not to conduct law enforcement interactions. Nia Brooks graduates from Southern Crest University School of Law that spring, finishing second in her class. During her graduation speech as student body president, she talks about watching her mother's dignity under fire, about the power of remaining calm when others try to break you, about the importance of fighting for justice, even when the system seems stacked against you. My mother taught me that dignity is not about how others treat you, Nia tells the assembled graduates. It is about how you treat yourself and how you treat others, especially when no one is watching. Dr. Brooks sits in the audience, the same composed expression she wore in that courtroom, but her eyes shine with pride. The local police department, now under federal oversight for 2 years, terminates 8 officers for misconduct after an FBI investigation reveals a culture of corruption that went far beyond Miller and Reed. The new police chief, a black woman with a doctorate in criminal justice, implements community policing programs that actually serve the neighborhood's officers once terrorized. The most important change happens in courtrooms across America, where defense attorneys can no longer assume that a badge automatically trumps a citizen's word, where prosecutors know that constitutional violations will be prosecuted regardless of who commits them, where judges understand that justice delayed is justice denied, but justice delivered sends a message that echoes far beyond any single case. Doctor Amara Elena Brooks returns to her work at Homeland Security, but now she carries something additional proof that the system can work when citizens refuse to stay silent, when evidence speaks louder than assumptions, and when dignity defeats prejudice. If this story moved, you hit that like button and subscribe to Stories of Justice for more incredible tales of justice prevailing against all odds. Share this with someone who needs to see that truth always finds a way to surface, and that standing up for what is right is never wasted effort. What would you have done in Dr. Brooks' position? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to ring that notification bell, because next week we are bringing you another unbelievable story of an underestimated person who shocked everyone when they revealed who they really were. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay calm and let the truth speak for itself.